We're going to be talking a lot about cell division, but before we get into the mechanisms and details, let's ask a more fundamental question. Why do cells divide? Well, there are several reasons that cells divide, so let's explore them briefly. First, cells may divide in order to reproduce. This is a great one to start with because there are three types of cell division we're going to mention that have to do with reproduction. Let's start with single-celled prokaryotes such as bacteria. This is a video of E. coli cells dividing. This is a time-lapse video, so it's been sped up. In real time, each cell division would take about 20 to 30 minutes, which is still incredibly fast. Now, what's actually happening in these cells while they divide is first, the chromosome is being copied. Recall that this is a circular chromosome. This is just an animated GIF showing chromosome replication in bacteria. And then the two copies of the chromosome are pulled to opposite sides of the cell. This is essential because each daughter cell needs a complete genome. The cell then forms a cell wall in the center and finally divides into two cells. Archaea do something similar, although the details of this process are different. By the way, there are two eukaryotic organelles that divide by binary fission as well, the mitochondrion and the plastid, or chloroplast. Why? Well, recall that these organelles have an endosymbiotic origin. In other words, they are descended originally from bacteria, alpha proteobacteria in the case of mitochondria, and cyanobacteria in the case of chloroplasts, and they still divide just like their bacterial ancestors. By the way, they do this frequently, and it's not tied to the eukaryotic cell cycle. Mitochondria need to divide frequently to maintain the cell's ability to produce ATP so that it can continue to metabolize. The second type of cell division that has to do with replication is mitosis. Now, technically, mitosis refers specifically to the division of the nucleus, but informally, it's often used to describe the whole process of cell division in eukaryotes. So here I'm just kind of using it informally in order to compare it to other types of cell division. Mitosis only occurs in eukaryotes. Some eukaryotic organisms, like this one, use mitosis in order to reproduce asexually. They divide to produce two daughter cells, which are complete organisms. By the way, even multicellular organisms can use this process to reproduce. For example, this hydra, which is an animal, is budding asexually via mitosis to produce two new individuals. Like binary fission, the cell must first copy its DNA and separate the copies to either side of the cell before splitting in half, because again, each daughter cell needs a complete genome. Plants and fungi use this as well for vegetative propagation. The third type of cell division that takes place to facilitate reproduction is meiosis. This is a special type of cell division in which the genome is copied and the cell divides and then divides again, so that each daughter cell has half of the DNA of the original cell. This type of cell division is required to reproduce sexually. In humans, this process produces the gametes, the eggs and sperm cells. These can then get together in the process of fertilization to produce a new individual via sexual reproduction. Reason number two that cells divide is growth and development. This occurs in multicellular organisms such as animals, plants, multicellular fungi, and multicellular protists. When a human goes from a single zygote or fertilized egg to an adult with about 37 trillion cells, at least that's our best estimate at the time this video was made, a lot of cell division has to happen, and this takes place via mitosis. Mitosis makes identical copies of the genome and results in two daughter cells. And let me just remind you that although you have many cell types that look and function much differently from one another, for the most part these cells have the same genome. Let's check in on a human embryo for the first couple of cell divisions. There's the first cell division. And now these two cells are each going to divide in half. Reason number three that cells divide, sometimes cells need to be replaced. For example, your skin cells are being sloughed off all the time, and the cells that line your digestive tract, same thing. They need to be turned over constantly or you would run out of cells. You can also think about wound healing. This video shows an in vitro wound healing assay in which each mitosis is circled in red or yellow. So these are cells in cell culture, and they're allowed to grow to populate the whole plate, and then an artificial wound is made. You can see them both migrating as well as dividing to fill in that gap. Reason number 4 that cells divide is regeneration. Not all organisms do this, but some do have that ability, and this is closely related to number 3, but it's a little bit different. For example, planarians, a type of flatworm, are famous for their ability to regenerate. If you cut a planarian in half, it will regenerate into 2 complete worms. You can cut them into smaller pieces as well. In fact, the record is held by the famous geneticist Thomas Hunt Morgan, famous for his fruit fly genetics. And he cut a single planarian into 279 pieces, and each one regenerated into a complete worm. What? Even some vertebrates can regenerate. For example, some species of newts, which are salamanders, can regenerate whole limbs that have been cut off. This is what we are seeing in this video. So in this case, a newt limb has been amputated, and we're seeing pictures day by day to watch the regeneration of those cells. Some newts can even recover from a complete spinal cord transection by regenerating, and they can regain full functional capacity. This is why some scientists are really interested in studying organisms like these, planarian and newts, as models of human regeneration. Imagine if we could use this information to figure out how to regenerate neurons and regain functional capacity after things like spinal cord injury in humans. That would be amazing. Okay, so we've covered some reasons that cells might divide. Reproduction, and here we could be talking about binary fission, mitosis, or meiosis. Growth and development, which takes place via mitosis. Cell replacement and regeneration, which are also mitosis. So we've covered the why, and next time we'll get more into the how.